Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Diachronic Ghost here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 Titan exotics in Destiny 2. And as always, this is based on my opinion of the exotics that I like to use and the playstyle that I play. Although you should keep in mind that I am technically a Titan main, and so is my PvP tryhard Zoomzy, so we have a lot of experience with Titan. And as such, obviously the PvP gameplay you'll see on screen is from Zoomzy, link to his Twitch in the description down below. And of course, throughout the video, you'll be seeing pictures of a spreadsheet that I have created, fully public for you guys to use over at my Discord server, link in the description down below on the channel #SpreadsheetsTalk. Moving on to the main section of the video, let's go ahead and take a deep dive into the spreadsheet. As you can see on the screen right now, this is my spreadsheet. All of its dark theme, color-coded, pictured out recommendations, PvE and PvP scored goodness all around. You can see what it looks like. Now obviously, if you just trust me and you don't really care about the rest of the video, go ahead and take a look at the spreadsheet, use what I recommend. But oftentimes the reasons why certain things are ranked the reason they are is going to be very important. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go through all of the non-ranked items first, very briefly, talk about where they're not ranked, and of course work our way backwards to the top 10. You know, I'm going to leave that part in. I thought that was good. I like that. And the last thing I want to say before we get started is that if something is not in the top 10, it does not mean it is bad. There are plenty of exotics in this list that are actually really fun and really good that just miss being in the top 10, because I can only have 10. A great example would be the first item on our list, Insurmountable Skull Fort, a very fun and really good exotic for Legend, Nightfall, and down. However, melee does lose its effectiveness past then. Up next after that, we have Eternal Warrior. Get an overshield in your super, you only really use it during your super, and it's not really that interesting. Kepri's Horn, you get the Barricade Energy, and the Barricade Shockwave of Fire, not that good and hard to use. Mask of the Quiet One, a pretty decent exotic, however you get maximum health on kills and not maximum health and shields, and the ability regeneration is around 5%, probably the best part about it. Precious Scars, often used in Trials of Osiris for a better revive, longer lasting overshield, but you also get an overshield when you revive somebody, which, you know, cannibalizes that. ACD Feedback Fence, you get actually a pretty decent damage resistance across the board from being meleeed, but by that point, usually you're about to die. Ashen Wake, actually a really fun exotic. In the Crucible, you can just one-shot somebody in the body with a 120 and then throw a grenade at them for an insta-kill and get your full grenade back. Combine that with Devastator for getting Roaring Flames, and you can get an instant-kill grenade after 2 grenade kills. I actually made a build about this like a few seasons ago. Check that out. It's a really fun build. Up next, we have Poseidon's Ramparts, usually used for a safe sniper perch in Trials of Osiris, which you then rush the enemy team with your stronger numbers. However, in PvE, you usually want a stronger barricade. Especially in Grandmasters, the barricades actually do die. Likewise, Icefall Mantles. Usually you want a barricade. And in PvP, oftentimes you will also want a barricade, but mostly the disadvantages of not being able to sprint or mid-air jump really ruin this exotic. On top of the fact that if you only have a sliver of overshield left, you're still slow. Pro tip, just switch exotics to get out of that. Stronghold, a dedicated sword exotic with a number of bonuses to swords. However, even during the sword meta, where swords were nerfed like 3 times, it has never been used. Or at least, very rarely. My recommendation to Bungie would be that make one of the stats actually affect how often we can heavy attack. The efficiency doesn't really do that. Wormgod Caress, more melee kills, more melee damage. It's not insane melee damage, and it does not stack multiplicatively anymore, as it used to be able to 7-punch Solmak, the Pit of Heresy boss. Now it's just average fun. Hey, average fun, babe. After that, we have the Axiom War Rig, somewhat of a fan-favorite exotic, allowing your auto rifles and heavy machine guns to have a longer or extended magazine. Most people would argue that Xenophage in Garden of Salvation during the boss fight allows you to use it the whole time. My counter argument is that you can just switch to a special ammo weapon and get around the same DPS, because the fact is, Xenophage does not have good DPS. It's actually below average. There are tons of even explosive damage weapons, like grenade launchers, rocket launchers, 1K, that do way better DPS and even better total ammo damage. I would say the best use of this exotic is with Sweet Business. Allowing you to have those higher RPMs for a longer period of time in the Crucible is really nice. Crest of Alpha Lupi actually used to be in the top 10, just recently kicked out by 2 new entries into the top 10. Giving you that healing pulse and that extra orb from your supers is really nice for your team. However, it's very boring. Hellfire Heart, giving you 2 to 4 times your generation speed on your melee and your grenade, is actually really fun. Used to be used a lot back in the Last Wish days. However, Solar's not that great. When Solar gets better, this will be back in the top 10. Severance Enclosure, you get an explosion that doesn't do much damage, not really that big of a radius, and usually when you're finishing, everyone else is dead. Antaeus Wards, not nearly as good as it used to be, still kind of usable and can be used in certain scenarios, definitely with shotgun rushing. However, in PvE, next to no use. MK44 stand-asides, in my opinion, a failure exotic, because it doesn't do anything particularly well. Someone of a universal insurmountable skull for, you have to be at full shield, you have to be at full sprint, you have to be using a shoulder charge, subclass tree node, and you get half your melee energy on a hit. When would I want this? Doesn't even work with stasis. The Peacekeepers, a number of bonuses to your SMGs. I would say the biggest advantage is autoload, because the fact is you don't really need better handling and better movement with SMGs. However, if we ever get a special or heavy ammo SMG, this might see more use, because autoloading is nice. Peregrine Greaves, which you can use to one-shot enemy supers in the Crucible pretty much across the board with just a shoulder charge. However, the current top 5 most used supers in the game are very mobile or flying, so you don't really use it that often, or usually you'll die before you can. And finally, Phoenix Cradle, a very good exotic actually, used in a lot of very fun builds with Solars. The same thing as Halifar though, Solar's not that strong, so this exotic is not that strong either. Moving on, let's get into the top 10 and the only honorable mention on the list, which is going to be Synthoceps. And honestly, this thing was so close to being in the top 10, which is why it deserves an honorable mention. Just very, very barely displaced by Armamentarium. Now, honestly, this is an exotic that you could really use in nearly every build. More super damage, more melee range, and more melee damage is something that can be used anywhere. I would say the only real downside to this is it does cannibalize the stasis melee lunge thing because it's such long range. And my personal recommendation would actually be with Code of the Juggernaut or with Code of the Missile, because with Missile you get slightly surrounded, you do extra damage, and you can one-shot enemies as soon as they hit a wall. And with Code of the Juggernaut you actually get a healing higher damage melee, allowing you to fight 3 people in a row while healing while one-shotting every single one of them. Something, honestly, that's very underrated. However, again, Arc is not really that great. Coming up at number 10, we have the Armamentarium, an exotic that's actually really good and can be used across all 4 different subclass types. On top of that, having an additional grenade will often change the outcome of a lot of battles. In PvE, it allows you to crowd control a lot better, put down a lot of extra damage down range, and in PvP, cold snap grenades are on the rise, so having an extra grenade and being able to be used with stasis is really strong. And finally, again, if you don't understand why an additional charge is useful, it's because of overflow charging. It's not because you just get 1 extra grenade when you first start off, it's because you're not going to be using a grenade as soon as you get it. More often than not, you'll be getting 50% to 100% more grenades per match just by having overflow charging. And this is true with all of the overflow exotics, things like Claws of Ahamkara or 6 Coyote. Having an extra charge is a lot better than it sounds. And Armamentarium being universal and grenades being really nice is what makes it deserve a top 10 position. Coming up at number 9 on this top 10, we have the Lion Rampant, somewhat of a quintessential Titan exotic when it comes to mobility, jump puzzles, speed, crazy movement, and honestly recently with Dead Man's Tale. If you've never heard of it, you get additional aerial maneuverability while you're in lift, which actually is built-in strafe lift, so you can technically use something else with it. And it enables accurate hipfire while you're in the air during lift, which is really nice with the blind firing of Dead Man's Tale and The Last Word. And on top of that, the lift lasts usually around 2 to 3 times as long. For the PvE side of things, this is more of a speed exotic because in lift you go faster and is technically faster over long periods of time than Dune Marchers. And if you're using it with Catapult, Lion Rampant, and a sword, you can actually stay in the air for like 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. I don't know what's happening with it, but you can stay in the air for a ridiculous and a long time. For the PvP side of thing, it's going to be with Dead Man's Tale while defensive floating. So you're running away from an enemy, or you know they're in a doorway, you just float above the doorway. They think you're on the ground because you're in the air for such a long period of time, you can just shoot above down to them. Now this all seems pretty simple, but mobility is extremely useful. The top players are definitely favoring more towards mobility as it helps them stay alive a lot longer. Coming at number 8 on this list, we have the Heart of Inmost Light, and very similarly to the Armamentarium, you can use this with nearly every build, getting you stronger, longer lasting barricades, giving you stronger, higher damage melee and grenades, and giving them faster regeneration just by using them. And let me tell you, it is easy to use a barricade to get more grenade energy, to then use a grenade to get more barricade energy. Even if you're not using your melee, this is a really good exotic. Combine this with crazy ability regeneration of Demolitionists or Traveler's Chosen, and you have your ability so frequently. And lastly, technically it also gives you more damage for your melee and your grenade, which scales pretty well into the high level PvE. I personally haven't used it for Grandmaster, but if you don't have the other Grandmaster tier exotics, this is a decent option. Coming up at number 7 in this top 10 list, we have the Helm of Same 14, an excellent high tier exotic that is usable in Grandmasters and raids, and even in PvP while in control, completely locking down choke points. First up, for the raids. Most of the time when people use it in raids, it's actually kind of useless, because the fact is, you'll often have a Well of Radiance, and you're mostly using it for the damage bonus and the overshield inside the bubble. You don't really need this exotic for raid. I would say the best use is going to be in Grandmaster Nightfall. Being able to pull a small overshield out is really nice. If any enemy enters your big old bubble, they actually get blinded and start stunning themselves out of the shield. So pretty much any instance you actually expect the enemies to come into your bubble, this is going to be an excellent choice. And then finally, in PvP, blinding enemies and making it so they have to punch you like 10 times to kill you inside your bubble is really strong. Even an enemy's super arc staff, you could probably out-punch. A Titan inside his bubble is incredibly tough, and this exotic just makes you a little bit better because you can pull an overshield out. Coming up at number 6, you know it, you love it, it's new to the season, Aeon Save. Used to be trash tier. With the new perks, it's amazing. Pretty much across the board, all of the Aeons pretty much exactly the same, 8 and 6 for PvE and PvP. This thing is incredible, and dare I say it, Grandmaster worthy. That's something I like to say a lot, but it is actually very, very important. Something is Grandmaster worthy, it's for a very specific reason. And this one, for like 10 reasons. You can spawn heavy ammo, you can spawn special ammo, you can give ability regeneration, super regeneration, healing, class ability, more reload, better handling, more damage to your weapons. This exotic can do it all. And honestly, a lot of these things are not requiring your other teammates to also have Aeon. Those are just extra bonuses. If you want more information, honestly, check out my previous top 10s on exotic armors. They're all exactly the same. The bonuses are amazing, and I would recommend it. Coming up at number 5 in this top 10, we have Ursa Furiosa, one of the best hunter exotics. No, whoa! I didn't even do that on purpose. It's one of the best Titan exotics. That really goes to show you. When I say the words best exotics, I think hunter. God damn. But yeah, Ursa Furiosa. I honestly use this in maybe 80% of all Grandmaster Nightfalls that I do because it is so incredibly useful. Getting 50 to 75% of your super just by blocking maybe 4 to 20 shots with this is really nice. Now, many people may be surprised that it's not higher up on the list, but you have to understand the best part about that build is actually built into the subclass. Orb generation from blocking damage with Sentinel Shield, and the extra long-lasting Banner Shield is built in. This does make it a lot better, allowing you to get your super a lot more frequently, but not, in my opinion, what makes it amazing. And for the other side of things, in PvP, it used to be really, really strong, but as soon as Stasis started to be able to freeze a Sentinel from the front, it really fell off and became very unusable in PvP. Because if you didn't know, you could just Ursa block into enemies, kill them, get all of your super back. It was incredible, but alas, no more. Coming up at number 4, we have the Dune Marchers, one of the best PvP exotics in the game, and definitely laying down the melee class for the Titan. Now, firstly, as I mentioned before, this has higher mobility, making it a very strong, high-level exotic for both PvE and PvP. Secondly, when you sprint for a few seconds, you build up a static charge, and regardless if you stop sprinting, that's a built-up charge that you then can release on any melee attack. When you then melee attack an enemy, that goes 15 meters to the nearest enemy, even off of enemy dead ghosts, and 15 meters from there to every enemy, past shocking back and forth around in circles on a lot of enemies. Honestly, reminds me of Arc Web back in the day, however a little less damage, but much farther reach. And to be honest, it actually is really that simple. Extra mobility, allowing you to stun enemies just by flinching them with your attack, and accidentally killing enemies you didn't even know were there. In my opinion, I do think that Bungie should make it so it doesn't bounce off of dead enemy ghosts, because that's a little ridiculous. But for the moment, if you like to get in people's faces, you like to slide shotgun, or you just like to kill enemies, like, this is a great exotic for PvP, and in PvE, mobility and stunning enemy targets is the most you get out of it. Coming up at number 3 in this top 10 list, we have the One-Eyed Mask, and honestly the best PvP option for Titans as well, usable in literally every class type, because you can use it in stasis or any of the light elements, and is very useful for any build. You get healing, an overshield, and you see enemy silhouettes, not through walls. That is usable across the board. And honestly, I would also recommend it for PvE, especially in raids where you don't really need a Helm of Same 14. Use the One-Eyed Mask to give you a little more survivability. survivability. Not the most amazing, but very good. And as always, I would like you to keep in mind what this exotic used to be. It used to be a 10 out of 10 in PvP because it was literally the best option in every single scenario. Back in Forsaken, this allowed you to heal and get an overshield instantly. It was not just like the refresh that it is now. Vengeance lasted for what, like 20-30 seconds, which allowed you to get that kill and get that bonus for a really long time. It allowed you to see enemies through walls for that 20 to 30 seconds, and it gave you a damage bonus similar to the Memento Mori damage bonus. Yeah, for some reason Bungie thought that that was a good idea. And now all we have is the healing and the silhouette, and it's still an incredible exotic that I would highly recommend no matter what you're doing in PvP, and honestly in PvE as well. Coming up at number 2 in this top 10 countdown, we have the Curious of a Falling Star. And in case you're wondering, it is pronounced Curious. I actually looked it up. It's a weird word that I've been pronouncing wrong for over a decade, but it is pronounced Curious. And if you've never heard of this exotic, you are sorely missing out. If you don't have it, find the Lost Sector with Chestwick on Titan and go and get it. It is not only incredibly fun, it is usable in raids and Grandmaster Nightfall. If you've never heard of it, it doubles the damage of Thunder Crash Impact and the Wake of the Explosion, while also giving you an overshield the longer you travel. Now what this means is that Celestial Nighthawk is no longer the disgusting DPS king it once was. Obviously Nighthawk is much safer and can be used against targets that you can't melee. But more often than not these days, you'll see more Titans in raids, you'll see more Titans in Grandmaster Nightfalls, and you'll see more Titans having more fun. Now, that's not to say I think that Titans are overpowered, not by a long stretch. However, I have been saying for a long time, Hunters are the strongest presence in PvP and PvE. However, in the last few seasons, the pendulum has been swinging back towards Titans and Warlock. In my opinion, Hunters, Titans, and Warlocks are closer than they ever have been. Titans have Ursa Furiosa for orb generation and defense. They have the big ol' bubble Helmsame 14 extra damage. They have the Doomfang fun and ad clear. And now they have the Falling Star. The Hunters have Raiden Flex ad clear, Celestial Nighthawk damage from safety, the Orpheus Riggs support, as well as the invisibility from Tether. And finally, the Warlocks have Phoenix Protocol Wells, which are used in nearly every Nightfall. They also have Geomag lasers, and they also have Controverse Hole. As soon as we get Oppressive back, they're gonna be back on top. I don't say this a lot, but I applaud Bungie. They have made one of the most balanced versions of Destiny we've ever seen. And that's not to say it's completely balanced, but the top of the top is really close to each other. And finally, at number 1, in my opinion, it is still Doomfang Pauldrons. Firstly, for the fun factor, this is probably the most fun exotic in the entire game, allowing you to have near infinite super just by throwing shields, getting melee kills, and honestly, very sturdy, resistant, and you can block damage super. As far as the exotic perks go, this, in my opinion, is the biggest benefit. There are other exotics that you'd rather use in Grandmasters or even Nightfalls, but in my opinion, this is the best perk exotic relative to its subclass. Now, if you've never heard of it, first of all, void melee kills give you super energy, which includes the shield bash outside of your super and in your super. And while Sentinel Shield is active, your melee kills recharge your shield throw, and your shield throw actually recharges your super. So here is the cycle. You get shield throws with Code of the Aggressor, which gives you 2 shields off the bat. Every shield hit you get, up to 3 shield hits, you get a third of your shield throw back, and you get more super energy for each time you hit enemies with your shield throw, i.e. a near infinite super. If you have a lot of enemies in front of you, your super will keep going. If you guys remember back in the Menagerie days, I would pop a super at the beginning of a Menagerie round, and it would last the entire round for like 4 or 5 minutes. And it hasn't changed since then. It is still incredibly fun and incredibly effective. Again, you are very resistant during your super, and your super lasts a really long time, and you can block damage with your Sentinel Shield, generating orbs, and you can just make it last a really long time. And the last thing I'll say is that if you're playing on Grenadier, either in a strike or in some type of special mission, you literally have an infinite super. If you have one enemy in front of you that doesn't die from your shield throws, infinite shield throws, infinite super. And it keeps stunning them too, which is really useful. And in PvP, it also has its uses. It allows your super to last a little bit longer, not nearly as amazing as in PvE, but also still has its uses. The main downside, again, is the fact that Sentinel Shield gets frozen by stasis, which is so annoying. And of course, as always, a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Without their help, I would not be able to make these spreadsheets, because they take 10 to 20 hours a week, and I make no money from them. In fact, I make less money by telling you to go to the spreadsheets rather than watching my video again. But I think that they're an incredible resource and beautiful. And so the patrons on Patreon make it possible for me to not need to get a part-time job and be able to put that time into making the spreadsheet. If you want to see them continue, please consider checking it out in the description down below. Specifically, I want to give a big thank you to Maddie Budu, Mom, Dad, Charles Williams, Dr. Strange, Joe Smith, Money, Nella Hopkins, Steve Optimus, Justin Ray, Raymond Chunner, Uta Panther, Cole Sherman, Casey Reagan. Dude, I'm not even reading the words anymore. My brain just remembers the pattern, but thank you. Welcome to the Patreon tier 3s. And yeah. That's the end of the video. Hashtag Team Titans for Guardian Games. We're not gonna win, but I'm gonna fight for Titans to the end of their days. My name's been Chronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.